They never expect it to come wrapped in silence, not fireworks, not announcements, just a quiet shift in the air when the calendar flips and the world pretends it's calm. Christmas Eve has a funny way of doing that, dressing itself in lights while rearranging destinies behind closed doors. Everyone's busy rehearsing traditions, replaying old stories, convincing themselves they already know how love works. And that's exactly when it slips through the cracks and rewrites the script. Love doesn't show up when people are waiting for it. Waiting is passive, polite, rehearsed. Waiting is sitting still and hoping the world feels generous. Readiness is different. Readiness is uncomfortable. It's built in silence, in decisions nobody applauded, in restraint that felt lonely at the time. Readiness is what happens when you stop asking when and start asking who you are becoming. People confuse the two because waiting feels innocent, but readiness feels dangerous. Like you might actually have to change. Love arrives when readiness replaces waiting, because readiness doesn't flinch. It doesn't negotiate with fear. It doesn't romanticize struggle or cling to illusions. It sharpens you. It strips you of fantasies about how things should look and forces you to accept how they are. That's why love feels sudden to outsiders. They think it came out of nowhere, when in reality it arrived right on time, at the exact moment you stopped needing it to save you. Readiness is built from endings people never saw, from walking away when saying would have been easier, from choosing solitude over noise, from learning how to sit with your own thoughts without numbing them. Love doesn't trust someone who is still waiting to be rescued. It responds to someone who can stand alone without bitterness, without desperation, without pretending they don't care. That kind of stability isn't soft. It's forged. And when it's ready, it doesn't announce itself. It recognizes its equal. People wait with expectation. They wait with lists, timelines, conditions, and hidden contracts. Readiness has none of that. It's flexible, alert, and grounded. It doesn't demand perfection. It demands honesty. When love meets readiness, there's no performance, no sales pitch, no audition. There's a quiet understanding that both people have already done the work separately, and now the work shifts into something shared. That's what shocks people. They expect drama, chaos, chasing, and confusion, and instead they witness clarity. Readiness also terrifies observers because it exposes their own delays. They waited for circumstances to change. You changed yourself. They waited for healing to arrive. You confronted your wounds directly. They waited for signs. You became the sign. Love doesn't reward patience the way fairy tales promise. It responds to alignment. It shows up when your actions, boundaries, and self-respect stop contradicting your words. That alignment is rare, and when it happens, it draws connection like gravity. Love arriving at readiness feels different because it doesn't destabilize you. It doesn't pull you away from yourself. It integrates. It adds instead of replaces. That's how you know it's real. Waiting love needs constant reassurance. Ready love doesn't. It's steady, observant, and deliberate. It doesn't rush, but it doesn't hesitate either. It recognizes opportunity and moves without panic. That calm movement unsettles people who learned love through chaos and confusion. Readiness also means you're no longer bargaining with the past. You're not trying to fix old stories by rewriting them with new characters. You're not projecting unfinished business onto someone innocent. Love senses that. It knows when it's being used as a distraction versus when it's being invited into a grounded life. That's why it arrives without warning. Because when readiness is complete, there's nothing left to negotiate. People say love is patient, but what they mean is they stayed still. Love isn't impressed by stillness. It responds to movement, growth, and self-awareness. Readiness is movement inward before it's movement outward. It's the courage to become whole without witnesses. When love finally arrives, it doesn't feel like luck. It feels inevitable, like two paths that we're always going to cross once the noise cleared. That's why your love story shocks the world. Not because it's loud, dramatic, or cinematic, but because it's clean. Because it doesn't beg approval. Because it didn't come from waiting rooms or wishful thinking, but from readiness built in quiet places where most people refuse to go. And when love meets that version of you, it doesn't ask for permission. It steps in, steady and unafraid, while everyone else is still wondering how it happened. So fast silence doesn't look like progress, and that's why people fear it. Noise feels productive. Noise feels alive. Noise gives the illusion that something is happening even when nothing is changing. Silence strips that illusion away. It removes the audience, the commentary, the distractions, and leaves you alone with yourself. Most people run from that moment because silence doesn't entertain, it interrogates. It asks questions you can't scroll past, questions you can't laugh away, questions that don't care how uncomfortable they make you. Silence prepares you by taking things away. It takes away validation. It takes away excuses. It takes away the comfort of being misunderstood on purpose. In silence, there's no one to impress and no one to blame. You either face what you are or you invent noise to avoid it. That's why silence builds something noise never can. Noise keeps you busy. Silence makes you honest. People think preparation looks like talk about plans, announcing growth, explaining pain, rehearsing futures. That's noise. Preparation happens when there's nothing to say because the work is internal. When you're alone long enough to notice your patterns. When you catch yourself lying to yourself and there's no one there to help you justify it. Silence doesn't let you escape your habits. It forces you to confront them without makeup, without filters, without applause. Noise rewards performance. Silence rewards alignment. In noise, you can be inconsistent and still feel important. In silence, inconsistency feels loud. Your thoughts echo. Your intentions expose themselves. You begin to notice where your actions don't match your words, where your confidence is borrowed, where your identity is built on reaction instead of choice. That awareness is painful, and that pain is the beginning of preparation. Silence also sharpens perception. When the volume drops, patterns emerge. You start seeing how people move, how situations repeat, how certain outcomes are predictable, because the behavior behind them never changes. Noise keeps you reactive. Silence makes you observant. It slows your impulse to respond and strengthens your ability to wait. And waiting, real waiting, not passive hoping, but controlled patience, changes how you move. When the moment finally arrives, most people avoid silence because it doesn't give immediate rewards. There's no applause for restraint, no recognition for self-control, no praise for not reacting. But silence trains discipline. It teaches you how to hold power without displaying it, how to endure discomfort without announcing it, how to grow without narrating every step. That's why when results appear, people think it happened overnight. They didn't see the quiet months where everything important was being built. Silence prepares emotional strength too. In noise, emotions are shared, amplified, validated, diluted. In silence, emotions are processed. You feel them fully without outsourcing them to others. You learn which feelings deserve action and which ones just want attention. That distinction changes everything. It keeps you from sabotaging progress with impulse. It keeps you from confusing intensity with truth. Silence teaches emotional literacy in a way no conversation ever could. There's also a danger in noise that people don't like to admit. Noise makes you predictable. When you talk too much, explain too much, react too quickly, people learn how to control you. Silence disrupts that. It creates uncertainty. It keeps your intentions protected. It allows you to move without being intercepted. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means containment. And containment is power. Silence prepares confidence that doesn't need witnesses. The kind that doesn't shake when questioned. The kind that doesn't collapse when misunderstood. When you've spent time alone, refining your values, testing your beliefs, and surviving your doubts privately, external opinions lose their grip. Noise-trained confidence needs constant reinforcement. Silence-trained confidence stands on its own, quiet, steady, unbothered. That's why when the moment comes, when opportunity, love, confrontation, or change finally appears, the prepared ones move differently. They don't rush. They don't over-explain. They don't perform. They recognize the moment because silence taught them how to listen. Noise would have distracted them. Silence trained their attention, their restraint, their timing, their judgment. It shaped them in ways no external motivation ever could. Silence doesn't announce what it's doing. It works in the background, reshaping instincts, sharpening awareness, stripping away what doesn't belong. People only notice the result and call it luck, timing, coincidence. They never credit the quiet seasons because those seasons didn't make a sound. But everything solid, everything real, everything unshakable was built there in the absence of applause, in the absence of explanation, in the space where you learn to sit with yourself long enough to become someone new without telling anyone what you were becoming. Timing isn't loyal to tradition, calendars, or comfort. It doesn't care what day people agreed was special or sacred. It moves according to truth, readiness, and consequence. Traditions are rehearsals repeated until they feel safe, predictable, controllable. Truth disrupts that. Truth doesn't knock politely or wait for permission. It bends timing around itself, not the other way around. That's why when something real happens during a moment everyone thought they understood, it feels shocking, almost offensive. People trust tradition because it removes responsibility. If things don't change, they can blame timing, destiny, fate, or the calendar. Truth doesn't allow that escape. Truth shows up when it's supposed to, not when it's expected. It arrives when denial runs out of energy. It appears when pretending becomes exhausting. That's when timing shifts, not because the moment is convenient, but because reality finally has space to breathe. Tradition teaches people to wait for permission, to wait for the right season, the right sign, the right approval. Truth doesn't wait. It exposes. It confronts. It arrives exactly when avoidance has reached its limit. That's why people feel betrayed by timing when something real happens outside the script. They thought life followed rules they memorized. Truth shows them life responds to honesty, not rituals. Timing bows to truth because truth carries weight. It bends circumstances. It rearranges priorities. It disrupts habits that were never questioned. When truth enters a situation, timing accelerates or collapses instantly. What people thought would take years happens in moments. What they delayed for decades demands action now. That compression feels unfair to those who relied on tradition as a shield. They feel rushed, exposed, unprepared. Truth also strips nostalgia of its power. Traditions survive because people hide inside them. They repeat the same motions, same words, same expectations, hoping meaning will magically return. Truth doesn't care about nostalgia. It cares about alignment. When something true appears, it doesn't ask whether it fits the story people wanted. It asks whether it fits reality. If it does, timing adjusts to accommodate it, not the other way around. People say timing is everything, but what they mean is control. They want timing to be predictable, manageable, explainable. Truth destroys that illusion. Truth introduces inevitability. When it appears, it makes delays obvious, excuses fragile, and rituals hollow. That's why it feels disruptive. It forces decisions people hope to postpone. It demands presence instead of performance. Timing tied to truth feels ruthless because it removes bargaining. You can't negotiate with it. You can't reschedule it. You can't dress it up to make it more comfortable. It shows up when alignment happens, when internal readiness meets external opportunity. That intersection ignores tradition completely. It doesn't care if it's inconvenient, ironic, or socially awkward. It arrives anyway. Truth also rearranges power dynamics. Those who relied on tradition to maintain status feel threatened. When timing shifts around truth, authority moves. Influence changes hands. People who prepared quietly suddenly stand at the center, while those who depended on routine scramble to catch up. That reversal feels like chaos to observers, but it's actually correction. Tradition teaches people what to expect. Truth teaches them what is. Expectation dulls perception. Truth sharpens it. When truth enters, timing accelerates awareness. People suddenly see what was always there but never acknowledged. Relationships clarify. Intentions reveal themselves. Paths split. That clarity feels violent to those who preferred ambiguity. Timing bows to truth because truth removes friction. When something is aligned, it moves cleanly. When it's false, it drags. Traditions often preserve friction because they protect comfort. Truth dissolves it. That's why when something real happens, it feels fast, decisive, irreversible. People call it sudden, but it was building quietly beneath the surface. While everyone was distracted by ceremony, truth doesn't care about optics. It doesn't care how the story looks from the outside. It cares about coherence. When coherence appears, timing snaps into place. Pieces move. Doors open. Conversations happen. Choices become obvious. The shock people feel isn't because truth arrived too soon, but because they weren't paying attention when it was preparing. Timing never belonged to tradition. Tradition only borrowed it. Truth owns it. When truth steps forward, timing follows without hesitation. It doesn't apologize. It doesn't explain. It doesn't slow down for comfort. It moves with precision, exposing who is ready, who is pretending, and who mistook routine for meaning. And once timing has bowed, there's no going back to the script. People memorize to feel safe. Comfort zones aren't places of peace. They're padded rooms where potential goes to sleep. People decorate them with routines, familiar faces, predictable outcomes, and call it stability so they don't have to admit they're hiding. Comfort feels safe because it asks nothing of you. It doesn't demand growth, risk, or honesty. It lets you repeat yesterday without consequences. That's why real connection becomes disruptive the moment it appears. It doesn't fit inside the walls people carefully built to avoid being exposed. Real connection doesn't knock gently. It walks in and starts rearranging things. It questions habits you never examined. It challenges beliefs you inherited instead of chose. It interrupts patterns you mistook for personality. That disruption is uncomfortable because it forces awareness. Suddenly, you're not just existing, you're being seen. And being seen is dangerous for anyone who built their life around hiding in plain sight. People say they want connection, but what they really want is validation that doesn't cost them anything. They want to be affirmed without being confronted. Real connection doesn't offer that bargain. It brings friction. It exposes inconsistencies. It demands presence instead of performance. When two people connect authentically, comfort zones collapse because pretending becomes impossible. Masks slip. Scripts fail. What's left is raw and unfamiliar, and most people don't know how to stand there without retreating. Comfort zones thrive on predictability. Real connection introduces unpredictability. It brings curiosity instead of assumption. It invites depth instead of surface-level exchange. It requires listening instead of waiting to speak. That shift feels threatening to anyone who built their identity on being unchallenged. When connection is real, you can't rely on habits to carry you through. You have to show up consciously, and that effort exposes how asleep you were before disruption is necessary because comfort zones breed stagnation. People stay the same for years and call it loyalty to self. They repeat the same mistakes and call it consistency. Real connection interrupts that loop. It reflects back parts of you that haven't evolved, not to shame you, but to wake you up. That reflection feels sharp. It cuts through narratives you use to protect yourself from growth. And when those narratives fall apart, people panic. Real connection doesn't soothe ego, it challenges it. It doesn't reassure insecurity, it highlights it. That's why people resist it while claiming to crave it. Comfort zones allow you to control how you're perceived. Real connection removes that control. It introduces mutual vulnerability, shared risk, and honest feedback. You can't curate yourself when someone sees beyond the presentation. That loss of control feels like danger to those who depend on it. When comfort collapses, excuses lose power. You can't blame timing, circumstances, or other people when connection reveals what you've been avoiding. Real connection shows you where you settled, where you compromised, where you stopped asking hard questions. That exposure is unsettling because it removes the safety net of denial. People retreat not because connection hurt them, but because it demanded more than they were willing to give. Comfort zones are silent agreements to not disturb each other. Real connection breaks that agreement. It asks for honesty even when it's inconvenient. It invites growth even when it's uncomfortable. It refuses to participate in mutual avoidance. That refusal feels aggressive to people who confuse peace with numbness. They interpret disruption as threat because they've never learned the difference between safety and stagnation. Real connection also redefines standards. Once you experience it, surface-level interactions feel empty. Small talk feels loud. Pretending feels exhausting. That shift isolates you from environments built on comfort alone. And that isolation scares people because it forces them to choose between familiarity and authenticity. Many choose familiarity and resent those who didn't. Comfort zones collapse when truth enters the room. Real connection carries truth naturally without forcing it. It shows what's possible when people stop hiding behind routines and roles. That possibility is threatening because it raises the bar. It exposes how much effort real intimacy requires and how little effort people have been giving. Instead of rising to meet it, many try to dismiss it, ridicule it, or sabotage it. Disruption isn't destruction, but to those invested in comfort, it feels the same. Real connection doesn't destroy who you are, it dismantles who you pretended to be. It removes the padding, the noise, the distractions. What remains is something sharper, more honest, more alive. That aliveness feels overwhelming to people who trained themselves to feel as little as possible. Comfort zones promise peace, but deliver numbness. Real connection delivers intensity, clarity, and growth. It demands participation instead of observation. That demand is why it shocks people, not because it's dramatic, but because it refuses to shrink itself to fit spaces built for avoidance. When real connection appears, comfort zones don't adapt, they crack. And in that cracking, people are forced to decide whether they want to stay safe or become. Real people love the word coincidence because it protects them from responsibility. Coincidence sounds harmless, random, polite. It lets them believe outcomes happen without effort, that results just fall from the sky and land on lucky people. Preparation ruins that fantasy. Preparation is uncomfortable, lonely, repetitive, and invisible. No one applauds it. No one notices it. And when it finally shows itself through results, people panic because admitting preparation exists means admitting they didn't do what they call it coincidence, when timing lines up too perfectly, when something works out too cleanly, when someone steps into a moment and doesn't hesitate. What they're really seeing is hours stacked on hours, choices stacked on sacrifices, discipline stacked on discomfort. Preparation doesn't announce itself because it doesn't need witnesses. It's built when nobody is watching, when there's no guarantee it will ever pay off. That's why it looks like magic to people who only move when they're. As proof, coincidence is a word used by observers who arrived late. They didn't see the isolation, the repetition, the failures that taught precision. They didn't see the restraint it took to say no when saying yes would have been easier. They didn't see the boredom of consistency, the frustration of slow progress, the discipline of showing up when motivation disappeared. All they see is the moment it works, and their brains scramble for an explanation that doesn't implicate their own inaction. Preparation builds familiarity with pressure. That's why it looks calm under chaos. People think calm means luck, or talent, or divine favoritism. They don't understand that calm comes from rehearsal, from facing discomfort so many times that it loses its shock value, from failing privately until mistakes stop being emotional and start being informational. When preparation meets opportunity, the reaction is smooth, almost casual. And that ease offends people who expect struggle. To always look dramatic, coincidence feels safer than acknowledging preparation, because preparation implies choice. It implies that outcomes are earned, not assigned. That realization threatens people who built their identity around waiting for the right time, the right sign, the right permission. Preparation doesn't wait. It assumes nothing is coming and builds anyway. That mindset separates people long before results appear, and by the time results are visible, the distance is already too wide to cross. People underestimate preparation because it's quiet. It doesn't complain. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't seek validation. It's repetitive, almost boring, and that's exactly why most people avoid it. They want growth that feels exciting, transformation that feels cinematic. Preparation feels dull, mechanical, thankless. But dull things compound. Small disciplined actions repeated without drama create momentum that looks unbelievable from the outside. When preparation finally shows itself, it exposes the lies people told themselves. The lie that they didn't have time. The lie that they were waiting for clarity. The lie that talent matters more than effort. Preparation reveals that clarity comes from action, not waiting. That confidence comes from familiarity, not affirmation. That talent without discipline collapses under pressure. These realizations sting, so people soften them by calling the outcome coincidence. Preparation also protects you from emotional chaos. When you've already faced discomfort deliberately, surprise loses its power. Opportunity doesn't overwhelm you because you've already imagined failure, success, rejection, and pressure in private. You've already rehearsed how to move, how to speak, how to decide. That preparedness looks unnatural to people who rely on impulse. They mistake control for luck, composure for chance. Coincidence is the story people tell themselves to stay comfortable. Preparation is the story they avoid because it demands accountability. If preparation matters, then neglect has consequences. If discipline works, then excuses fail. That is why people would rather believe in randomness than admit patterns exist. Preparation creates patterns. It turns chaos into predictability. It makes outcomes less surprising. And predictability scares people who depend on hope instead of habit. Preparation doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees readiness. And readiness changes everything. When the moment arrives, you don, freeze, perform, or panic, you move. That movement feels unfair to those who waited for confidence to arrive first. They dawn to realize confidence is a byproduct of preparation, not a prerequisite. They dawn to realize the moment does. To create readiness, readiness creates the moment people will. Always call it coincidence when preparation exposes the gap between effort and expectation. They'll say you were in the right place at the right time, ignoring that you made yourself capable of using that time. They'll say it happened fast, ignoring the years it took to make fast possible. They'll say it was unexpected, ignoring that you were expecting it. Enough to prepare for it. Preparation does argue with opinions. It does correct misunderstandings. It does need credit. It just keeps working quietly until the moment arrives and does what it was built to do. And when it does, the world reacts with disbelief, confusion, and convenient explanations, because accepting preparation as the cause would mean accepting that outcomes are not accidental, that discipline compounds, that effort matters, and that most missed opportunities weren't missed by chance, but by choice. You ever notice how people only believe in help when they can see it? When it comes in a neat little package, wrapped up with a bow, something they can touch, hold, point at, say, there it is, that's my proof. But when help doesn't look the way they expect, when it's quiet, when it's slow, when it's wrapped in struggle instead of comfort, well, that's when the doubt creeps in. That's when they start thinking they're alone. Funny little word, isn't it? People think it's supposed to come wrapped in kindness, with gentle hands and soft voices. They expect a lifeline, a shortcut, a way out. But that's not how it works, is it? No, real help never looks like help when you're in the middle of it. It looks like pain, it looks like confusion, it looks like everything going wrong all at once, and you wondering if maybe, just maybe, the universe has it out for you. People say they want help, but what they really mean is they want relief. They want a way to skip the suffering, to avoid the hard parts, to get from point A to point B without any scars. But here's the joke. Scars are the proof that you've been shaped, that you've grown, that something had to be torn away for something better to take its place. You don't get that without a little fire. And a fire doesn't feel like help when you're standing in the middle of it. Imagine this, you're drowning, you're flailing, desperate, reaching for anything to keep you afloat. You call for help, and then someone tosses you a weight, a big, heavy weight. You think, what kind of help is this? You're angry, confused, betrayed. But what you don't see, what you can't see, is that the weight is actually a life raft. You were too panicked to look at it properly, too consumed by fear to see that what you thought was dragging you down was actually keeping you alive. That's what help looks like sometimes. It's heavy, it's uncomfortable, it feels like the last thing you need, until you realize it's the only thing keeping you from sinking. Oh, but people don't like that answer. No. They want something softer, something easy. They don't want to believe that help can come wrapped in struggle, that it can feel like loss, like rejection, like failure. They want the good kind of help, the kind that doesn't sting. But that's not how it works. If you keep touching something that's bad for you, sometimes the only way to save you is to burn you. And that burn, that's not punishment. That's the lesson. Think about the people you've lost, the places you were forced to leave, the dreams that slipped through your fingers. You thought those things were taken from you, that life was cruel, unfair. But if you look closely, really closely, you'll see that those losses weren't losses at all. They were roadblocks keeping you from heading straight into disaster. They were detours that led you somewhere you were always supposed to be. It's funny, isn't it? How people fight against the very thing that's saving them. How they beg for help and then curse the way it comes. They don't want to believe that the struggle itself is the help. That the pain is the shaping, the molding, the breaking away of everything false, everything weak, everything that was never meant to stay. And when it's happening, when it's tearing them apart, they scream, "Why is this happening to me?" But the real question is, why wouldn't it be? See, people want transformation, but they don't want to go through the fire. They want strength without the weight that builds it, wisdom without the mistakes that teach it, growth without the loss that demands it. They want the end result, but they don't want to earn it. They don't want to bleed for it. But you don't get to skip the process. You don't get to choose the shape of your lessons. You don't get to say, "Teach me but make it painless." Because pain? Oh, pain is the best teacher there is. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It just does what it needs to do. And the real punchline? The real twist in this little joke? The worst moments? The ones that make you want to give up, that make you question everything? Those are the ones that are saving you. Those are the ones you'll look back on and realize that's when everything changed. That's when you were being helped the most, even when you couldn't see it, especially when you couldn't see it. People like to think they're good judges of character. They look someone in the eye, shake their hand, hear a few pretty words, and boom, trust. They believe in loyalty, in love, in friendships that are meant to last forever. But forever? That's a tricky little word. Because some people, they were never meant to stay. They were never meant to be real. And the funniest part, you don't always get to see it right away. No. Life likes to play a little game first. A slow burn, a long con. And just when you think you've got it all figured out, snap, it pulls back the curtain. Sometimes they lose you. And that's a different kind of pain, isn't it? Because at first, it looks like betrayal, like a knife between the ribs, like all those promises, all those late night talks, all those moments, gone, wasted. And you sit there wondering, was any of it real? Were they ever who they pretended to be? But deep down, you already know the answer, don't you? The mask slipped, the act fell apart. And there it was, the truth. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's just a little shift, a feeling, a look that lingers too long, a silence that stretches just a little too wide. You start noticing things, how their words don't match their actions, how they're only around when it's easy, when it benefits them, how the moment things get rough, poof, they vanish. Funny, isn't it? How the ones who swore they'd always be there are the first to leave, the first to turn away, the first to act like you never mattered at all. And you want to call them out, don't you? You want to drag them into the light, make them confess, make them see what they did. But here's the real joke. Some people, they already know. They knew exactly what they're doing. They knew the whole time. And you just took too long to figure it out. Because the signs, they were always there. You just didn't want to see them. But let's be honest. Sometimes you needed the illusion. You needed to believe in them, to hold on to the lie, because if you let go too soon, you wouldn't have learned what you needed to learn. So the game played out, the act went on, until one day life decided you'd had enough, and just like that, it ripped them away. Maybe it was sudden, maybe it was slow, but either way, there it was. Truth, raw and ugly, staring you right in the face. You ever notice how the worst people leave right before you hit your breakthrough? Right before you level up? Right before everything starts to fall into place? It's almost like they were never meant to go where you're going. Like they weren't built for the next chapter. Like they were only ever supposed to be a lesson, a warning, a test. Oh, but here's the part that really stings. Sometimes it's not just the bad ones that go. Sometimes it's the ones you loved. The ones you would have done anything for. The ones who felt like home, and losing them? That's not just a lesson. That's a scar. One you carry, one you run your fingers over late at night, wondering if you could have done something different. But deep down, you know the answer. They weren't meant to stay. They were meant to show you something. Something about yourself. Something about them. Something about the way the world works when you're not looking. So you sit there, staring at the empty spaces they left behind, thinking it's a loss. Thinking it's unfair. But the real joke, the real twist, it's not a loss at all. It's a reveal. A grand, dramatic unmasking. Life has a funny way of stripping away the people who can't go where you're going. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It just does what needs to be done. And when the dust settles, when the curtain drops and you finally see the truth, you realize it was never about losing them. It was about finding you. People think they know what betrayal looks like. They imagine a knife in the back, a dramatic exit, a loud, messy goodbye. But that's not how it always happens. No, no, no. Sometimes it's quieter, slower, like a leak in the ceiling you don't notice until the whole place caves in. You think everything's fine until it isn't. You think they're real until they're not. And by the time you finally open your eyes, the joke's already on you, isn't it? See, the best liars aren't the ones who tell you 100 little lies. No, they're the ones who mix just enough truth in to make you believe them. They don't come with flashing signs that say, hey, I'm fake. No, they smile, they nod, they say all the right things at all the right times. And you eat it up, because that's what you want to believe, that they care, that they mean what they say, that they'd never, ever, ever turn on you. But funny thing about masks, they don't stay on forever. Oh, but you saw the cracks, didn't you? Little things here and there. A moment when they didn't clap as loud when you succeeded. A time they weren't there when you needed them. A look, a hesitation, a whisper behind your back. Tiny details. But details add up, don't they? At first, you ignored it. Told yourself you were overthinking, that people have bad days, that they didn't mean it like that. But deep down, a little voice kept saying, something isn't right. You just didn't want to listen. Because facing the truth, that's the hard part. The real, gut-wrenching, stomach-turning hard part. The part where you realize they were never who you thought they were. That they were only around for the good times, the easy times, the times when you had something they wanted. Oh, but the moment things got a little messy, a little inconvenient, gone, just like that. And you sit there, replaying everything in your head, looking for the exact moment it all changed. But here's the twist. It didn't change. It was always like this. You just finally noticed. That's the cruel part, isn't it? That you let them close, that you gave them a front row seat to your life, that you trusted them with your fears, your hopes, your secrets, only to find out they were never really on your side. That they weren't clapping for you, they were watching you, calculating, waiting. And when the time was right, when they thought they had what they needed, they showed their hand. But by then, it was too late. And you want answers, don't you? You want to ask why. Why they did it. Why they played the part. Why they stayed when they didn't care. Why they left when they swore they never would. But here's the real kicker. Some people, they don't even know why they do it. It's just who they are. They don't think about the damage they leave behind. They don't lose sleep over it. They move on. And you're stuck there, trying to make sense of something that was never meant to make sense. But let's be honest. You're not really mad at them, are you? You're mad at yourself for not seeing it sooner, for ignoring the warnings, for giving them the benefit of the doubt when they never deserved it. You think, if only I had paid attention, if only I had walked away first. But that's the thing about lessons. You don't get to learn them before you need them. You learn them after, when the damage is done, when the truth is ugly, when you're standing in the wreckage of what you thought was real. Oh, but here's the part they don't tell you. The reveal. It's a gift. Because now you see people for who they really are, not who they pretend to be. And maybe it hurts, maybe it burns, maybe it leaves a scar so deep you'll never forget it. But would you rather have lived the lie? Would you rather have kept them close, not knowing they were only ever going to betray you in the end? No. The reveal is the best part. It's where you win. Because the ones who were meant to stay, they don't need masks. They don't need tricks. They don't need anything from you but you. And the ones who don't, well, they reveal themselves sooner or later. Always. Oh, you thought people would be happy for you, didn't you? Thought they'd cheer you on, clap for you, maybe even throw a little confetti when things started going your way. That's the funny thing about expectations. Set them too high and they drop like a body off a rooftop. Because people don't always like seeing you win. Oh, they say they do. They smile, they nod, they tell you how proud they are. But watch closely. Watch their eyes when you tell them good news. Watch the hesitation before they say, "Wow, that's great." You feel it, don't you? That little pause. That little something that makes you wonder if they really mean it. See, people love a good underdog story. They love to watch you struggle, to see you claw your way up from the bottom. They love when you need them, when you come to them broken, when you beg for advice, for help, for scraps of encouragement. Makes them feel important, useful. But the moment you start standing on your own 2 feet, oh, that's when things get interesting. Because now you don't need them the same way. Now you're moving up, maybe even ahead. And suddenly that smile, it's a little forced. That applause, a little quieter. That support, oh, it's got a few cracks in it now. But you don't want to believe it. No. You tell yourself they're just busy. That they didn't mean to forget to show up, to check in, to say something nice when you finally did something worth celebrating. You make excuses for them the same way you always have, but deep down, oh, deep down, you feel it. You know. Because when they were winning, you were there, weren't you? Clapping the loudest, cheering them on, making sure they knew you had their back. But when it's your turn, silence. Maybe even a little side eye. Maybe even a snide comment dressed up as a joke. And it starts creeping in now, doesn't it? That little voice in your head whispering things you don't want to hear. Maybe they never really wanted me to win. Maybe they only liked me when I was struggling. Maybe they only kept me around to feel better about themselves. And you try to push it down, try to silence it, but it keeps coming back. Because some part of you, the part that sees things exactly as they are, knows the truth. Knows that not everyone who stands next to you is really on your side. Knows that some people smile at you just to hide the fact that deep down they hope you fall. And here's the best part. You don't even have to do anything to make them show themselves. No. Just keep winning, keep growing, keep moving forward. Watch how they react when life starts giving you the things you worked for. Watch how their energy shifts when you start becoming the person they never thought you could be. It's a funny thing, really. You don't lose people when you fail. You lose them when you succeed. When you were down, they could handle that. But watching you rise, that's a whole different game. And not everyone has the stomach for it. And you sit there, confused, hurt maybe, thinking, but I thought they were my friends. I thought they cared. I thought they'd always be there for me. And that's where you got it wrong, because real ones, they don't flinch when you win. They don't get quiet, they don't get jealous, they don't start acting funny when you finally start getting what you deserve. No, real ones clap like they mean it. They push you higher. They celebrate with you, not just for you. And the ones who don't, well, they were never really for you in the first place, were they? And that realization, that's where the fun really begins. Because now you see them clearly. Now you know who's who. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Oh, but don't be sad. Don't waste your energy trying to bring them with you, trying to make them happy for you, trying to explain yourself. Because you don't owe them that. No. You just keep going, keep rising, keep winning. And if they can't handle it, well, that's... Oh, you ever notice how people love to play nice until the game changes? How they'll sit there, smiling, acting like they're rooting for you right up until the moment things start shifting in your favor? It's funny, really. They'll tell you to chase your dreams, to be strong, to keep pushing forward, until you actually do. And then, oh, that's when the mask slips. That's when the little cracks start to show. Because they were fine with you dreaming, just not with you winning. See, people like you as long as you stay where they put you. As long as you play your role. The struggling one. The one who needs saving, the one who always has a problem they can swoop in and fix. That makes them feel good, important, like they've got the upper hand. But the second you start figuring things out on your own, the second you start moving in a direction they didn't expect, that's when the whispers start. The little comments, the cold stares, the sudden distance. Because people don't mind seeing you do better, just not better than them. Oh, no. That's a different story. That's when they start acting funny. You ever notice that? How the energy shifts when you stop complaining, stop doubting, stop begging for advice? The moment you start standing tall, walking with purpose, making choices without needing their approval, that's when they start questioning you. Are you sure about this? You've changed. You're not the same person anymore. Of course you're not. That's the point. And here's the kicker. They'll sit there watching you struggle, pretending to care, but the second you start getting ahead, suddenly they're the ones with the problem. Suddenly you're too much. Suddenly you're acting different. Oh, but when you were broken, when you were lost, when you needed them, Oh, they loved that version of you. The version that made them feel big, made them feel needed. But this version, the one that doesn't need permission, that doesn't ask before taking up space, that version, oh, they hate that. And it's funny, isn't it? Because they could have been happy for you. They could have stood beside you, clapped for you, walked with you into whatever's next. But no. That would mean admitting they never really wanted you to rise in the first place. That would mean facing the ugly little truth they've been hiding even from themselves. Because deep down, they liked you small. They liked you unsure. They liked you needing them. But here's where it gets real interesting. Some of them, they won't just pull away. No, that'd be too easy. Some of them will try to bring you back down. Oh, they'll test you. They'll bait you. They'll throw little jabs, little digs, just to see if you'll shrink. Just to see if they can pull you back into the box they built for you. Because the idea of you stepping into something bigger, oh, that terrifies them. And what do? Huh? Do you fight? Do you try to explain yourself? Do you waste your breath convincing them you're still the same person, that you haven't forgotten where you came from? No. That's what they want. They want you to doubt yourself. They want you to hesitate, to second guess, to slow down just long enough for them to catch up. But you see it now, don't you? You see through the game. You see who's real and who was only pretending. And that changes everything. Because once you know, you know. And once you know, you can't go back. Oh, you ever notice how life's got this funny way of showing you exactly who people are? Not through what they say. Oh, no. That's too easy. No, life has a better trick, a crueler trick. It shows you through what they do. Through those little moments, the ones you almost miss if you're not paying attention. A hesitation before a congratulations, a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, a silence when you needed a voice. That's how you really know. That's how life whispers the truth. See, people talk a big game. They swear they're with you. They promise they're different. They make you believe they're on your side, and maybe they even believe it themselves. But belief is a fragile thing, a slippery little lie we tell ourselves to sleep at night. Because when the time comes, when life shakes things up, when the tables turn, that's when you see. That's when you realize that some people were never for you. They were just around you, and there's a big difference. Some people, they don't stick around because they love you. No. They stick around because of what they get from you. Maybe it's control, maybe it's validation, maybe it's just the comfort of knowing you're beneath them. But the second that balance shifts, the second you start rising, oh, watch how fast they change. Watch how the smiles fade, how the warmth turns cold, how the ones who once cheered for you suddenly have nothing to say. Funny, isn't it? And maybe at first you don't want to see it. You make excuses. They're just busy. They're going through something. Maybe I did something wrong. That's the cruelest part. Because you want to believe in them. You want to believe they're the people they pretended to be. But the truth? Oh, the truth is a nasty little thing. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just is. And once you see it, really see it, there's no unseeing it. So what do, huh? Do you beg them to stay? Do you try to fix it? To prove to them that you're still the same person? That you haven't changed? That you're still safe for them? No. That's the trap. That's what they want. Because the moment you start explaining yourself, the moment you start pleading, they win. They get to keep you small, keep you doubting, keep you exactly where they need you to be. But you know better now, don't you? You know what real support looks like, real love. It doesn't flinch when you grow. It doesn't shrink when you shine. It doesn't sit in silence while you fight alone. It shows up. Every time. And the ones who don't, the ones who disappear the moment you start stepping into something bigger, well, they were never really with you, were they? They were just passing through. And life, oh, life has a way of sweeping them right out of your way. Not with a bang, not with some grand betrayal. No, that'd be too easy. Life is subtle. It just peels them away, one moment at a time. A missed call here, an excuse there. A distance that grows wider and wider until one day you wake up and realize they're just gone. Not because you pushed them away, not because you changed, but because they were never meant to stay in the first place. And the best part? Oh, the best part is that life doesn't leave empty spaces. No, the ones who leave, they make room for something better, for something real, for the people who don't need you to shrink, who don't get jealous when you rise, who don't feel threatened by your light, because the ones who are meant for you, they don't just tolerate your growth, they celebrate it.